All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You are still watching Daybreak Extra on Trust Television, and we have our second guest in the studio. Meanwhile, today is Human Rights Day, so happy Human Rights Day to everyone. And this is what we'll be discussing. We'll center our topic around this morning. Human Rights Day is celebrated every 10th of December, the day the United Nations General Assembly adopted in 1948 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to create awareness and mobilize political will to promote respect for the rights and freedoms. Now, the 2022 theme of Human Rights Day is dignity, freedom, and justice for all. And right now, we have in the studio with us Mr. Hamid Ajibola Jimo, Esquire. He's the Secretary, NBA Human Rights Committee. Good morning and thank you for joining us on
Thank you.
Daybreak
Good morning.
this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I thought he was going to school us, Esquire, Mister. And
Okay.
yeah, I was expecting that. I was expecting that. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
When we talk about human rights, the theme for this year, of course, it makes a lot of noise about human rights. And whenever and wherever humanity values are abandoned, we jump into a greater risk. And that's as a result of what we're facing today, a lot of human rights abuses in Nigeria. So now, getting into 2022, have we done better than we have since the Declaration of Human Rights? Since we joined, or we actually, yes, we took that oath. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, the issue of human rights is to ensure justice for me and you and every citizen, to ensure that we all have equality or equal status before the law. And we would observe Nigeria has undergone series of change in political administration. We suffered the issue of when we had just a unitary constitution, then we also moved to military, and from military to democracy, military again to democracy. Then from all this, definitely there have been some improvements, and one of the tools in achieving this improvement is the tool of legislation, lawmaking. So because of that, like for instance, we are aware of far back as 1990, we had what were fundamental rights enforcement procedure rules. Then we have the new one, 2009, which has now advanced to advance the cause of human rights than the repealed rule of 1990. Then we also had, for instance, in the federal law, we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, 2015. Then we also have the Anti-Torture Act of 2017. And also, we've recently had the Nigeria Police Act 2020. All these have shown values for human rights and have laid procedures that all securities and government agencies, especially at the federal level, to comply in the course of arrest, detention, and prosecution of suspect or alleged suspect. And not only that, we also observe that even with this, the government has been trying its best to ensure that various stakeholders, especially the security and law enforcement agencies, are well trained as regard respect for the human rights of citizens. So during the military, anything could be done without any discipline or anybody raising any query. And in democracy, we started, but when these laws came up, we would observe certain reduction. At least if all these human rights abuses are 100%, you agree with me that at least some percentages have been taken off the record. So maybe we are having maybe up to like 60-70% of abuses, but the 30 that have removed has been deducted from the record, there are also a kind of actions that are worth commendation. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is there have been developments, there have been improvements, legislations coming up have been one of the tools for achieving that. And you see people also getting to know more about their rights. Because when some of these legislations are coming up, various human, non-governmental NGOs, organizations, non-governmental organizations, and international non-governmental organizations, they are now, building up, thereby building citizens' capacities. And with this, we observe people getting to know more about their rights. Even those who have been victims of rape, they can now boldly come out, even carry out protests, speak out, lodge complaint. And you see some of these things, people who are in government now know that the people, they get to know about their rights. Look at the EndSARS protests and the effects which we are still suffering from now. So all this show that the public get to know more about their rights. So then, it is not no more the way of doing in the past.
Okay, well,
so with that, there is improvement, though there's still more to be done.
Well, a lot of people would actually ask, why do we talk a lot about human rights and not human responsibilities? Because they seem to think that people find it difficult to actually comply with those rights. Why do you think it's difficult?
Yes, in my own assessment, if you have to look at it, I'm a citizen and I'm also a human being, and I think it's first thing first. Because though when we talk of rights, jurisprudentially in law, legal jurisprudence, we talk of duty too. So this responsibility, talking about the duty on citizens. Yeah, citizens are performing their duties. They pay tax, which is part of civic duty or civic responsibility. And when there's curfew, citizens comply. You don't see them, and there is penalty for anybody who refuses to comply with the law. And you have seen when people breach law, they are arrested, detained, interrogated, prosecuted where necessary. So if this duty we are talking about, that's why we have several criminal laws. Because the criminal law says do's and don'ts. Do this if you refuse, there is consequence. So and it is assumed or presumed that every man is responsible for his action. At the time you are committing that, you are responsible. Day in, day out, we see the National Drug Law Enforcement Agencies arresting some who have turned themselves to be recalcitrant to complying with the law. And some of these people, if you go to prison, that's why we have the correctional centers. It's human beings that are there, not animals. So which shows those who have refused or failed to, to comply with law, they face the consequences of disobeying the law. Not only that, a number of persons have had their property being frozen by the government, So with all this, we have various government institutions enforcing the law of the land. So these are part of the civic duty. So I would, in that vein, respectfully wish to disagree on the part that citizens have not been complying with the duties. You are a citizen. You have also been complying. That's why you are here. I can remember when I was on my way to the studio, I observed the NBC, and I wonder why NBC is close to Delhi, to the Trust TV, So with that, it shows for you to even establish your station side by side the NBC means you are in compliance as a good citizen of Nigeria, whether artificially or in human capacity. So with that, I would disagree that citizens don't. Those who don't, the law is there to take its course on them. So if citizens are doing that, then the government holds citizens the responsibility to also do that which it ought to do. That is why the United Nations Universal Declaration of
Human
Human and People's Rights was made in 1948. If you check the Article 1 and 2 specifically, which also covers the theme of this year, Human Rights Day, which the Article 1 talks about dignity and for all, without an equality of rights. Then the Article 2 talks about the need that justice must be for all, without any discrimination based on birth, politics, or any other means. So it is expected that the government too would make sure that necessary tools are put in place to ensure compliance with this right, so that every year we'll be talking about the improvement we've had from the past last year to the current year. So government too has its own duty. And if government fails, that brought about the issue of NSAS protest, because several complaints have been made. If complaints are made, government needs to take public complaints. That is why we have even the Public Complaints Commission. So if complaints are being made by victims of oppression, victims of violations of human rights, and the government is being so nonchalant to address them, it degenerates to jungle justice, which the law would not allow. And that is the essence why government also holds the duty to ensure that justice is for all. And everyone is not above the law. And that is what we call the rule of law.
Okay, so now you talked about justice. Justice can be slow sometimes in some matters, but that aside, you talked about the articles of the United Nations Declaration of Human and People's Rights. It kind of drew my attention to one of the articles that talked about standing up for human rights. You know, all nations need to stand up, uphold human rights. And you'll be thinking, how can I do that? I'm not a legal practitioner. I cannot go in a court of law and institute a case and then stand for myself, go through all the processes like a legal luminary would. So what do the ordinary citizens, how can they uphold each other's rights? You know, how do we go about that?
Yes, thank you very much. The Article 1 specifically provides that we as human, we should relate in brotherhood. We are our brother's keepers. So one of those things we can do, I am sure you are not a lawyer. This you are doing is what is called sensitization. So you do not have to be a lawyer to sensitize others. If you know something, then say something.
Okay.
So we owe the first duty to sensitize ourselves. Do you know this is your right?
Okay.
So if there is need for legal practitioners, like for instance, the Nigerian Bar Association, the Garki branch, Abuja, is there. I am standing on behalf of the Human Rights Committee and the branch. We also have about other 125 branches across Nigeria.
You are the secretary?
Yes, of the Human Rights Committee, so which we also name the human rights advocates. So not only that, we also have our national body.
Okay.
So we can all be reached. We are a group of lawyers who would be ready at any time of call to stand for justice, to stand for the promotion of rule of law. So if any victim suffers, we are there to stand as a team of lawyers to ensure that such a person or victim secures justice to any level. We have that right to enter court, any court from the lowest to the superior.
Work?
Yes, the Nigerian Bar Association also take this even on pro bono, looking at the economic situation of the victim. What is much more daring to us is the need for the victim to secure justice, and that is why we also collaborate with various stakeholders and state actors in human rights protection, the Legal Aid Council of Nigeria, the National Human Rights Commission, the Public Complaints Commission, and other parastatals, both public and private. So anyone who has suffered human rights violation is free to seek legal representation or legal consultation with lawyers. And any lawyer you see too is definitely a member of one MBA or the other. Apart from that, there are those of us who on our own personal capacity also carry out this function to ensure justice prevails in every situation of abuse of right of fellow human. So that is on that. So even we have people who are not lawyers that have established NGOs, non-governmental NGOs. We have those that have that are on rape, those on human rights. So what some of them do too is to have maybe lawyers as legal advisor. So anytime they have to take legal action or legal step, they seek their lawyers, they consult. Some of them also collaborate with the MBA Nigeria Bar Association to effect such objective. So you don't have to be a lawyer for you to fight for the right of anybody, because that is why the slogan that they say, injustice to one is an injustice to all. And injustice somewhere is injustice against justice everywhere. So we all have to show our unity, as in we should unify ourselves to ensure that you do not see your brother suffering, then you keep quiet. So you must take an action.
All right.
Thank
so where do you strike a balance between human rights and freedom of speech? I'm sure you know the recent case about with the wife of the president and the students, you know, and all that. And a lot of people seem to complain that social media, you know, when it comes to freedom of expression, it has done more damage than, you know, anything. So where do you strike a balance? Is freedom of expression or freedom of speech meant to be unconditional?
Definitely by the Constitution, which has granted rights of expression. It has also granted right to derogate from such expression, which is a freedom. It's a limited freedom, not an absolute freedom. For instance, Section 45 of the Constitution provides that such right can also be derogated from. So in deserving circumstances, especially where there is reasonable justification in a democratic civil society. So for any government to take away such right, there must be that reasonable justification in a democratic civil society. You see this couching of words, they have their meanings by interpretation why the Constitution chose those words, or the drafters of that section. So you suffer what we call defamation, because there is the law where your right is undergoing its use. The law also has to protect the right of another person. That you don't abuse, that would be like abuse of right. So a private person to violate right, not only government violates. So in such instance, you suffer defamation. We have criminal defamation. We have defamation in civil capacity. So all this shows that before you express yourself, scrutinize what you're expressing. Look at it very well before you become liable. Though, like the case cited of the First Lady, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, this relates to a political office holder in a way, because the husband holds an office, and also the wife is as if the family holds such. So, to me, it is not the first. Constructive criticism should be allowed for those who have come to us for campaigning to us, pass manifestos to us, and then secure our votes to get into office. Not then becoming a tyrant over us. I am not saying she is. And so as a result of that, it is if you have to be taking up every comment over 200 million Nigerians in Nigeria and those in outside abroad. You know, if you have to be taking them to account, you get so frustrated, lose concentration, and be distracted from public role. And if there are issues, comments that will be made, you need not even make any issue out of it, so that it's when you make issue out of it, then you grant the maker of such statement undeserved popularity. And not only that, you now awake in people that grudge to bring out, including opposition party, to now bring a lot of issues. I don't mean this issue was not handled with wisdom, because the case instituted was later withdrawn, and other things internally that we don't even know in the public happened. So it could have degenerated into something else. So when you take every comment up, it can degenerate. People are looking for such an opportunity, to bring out their evil acts. So we need to be very careful as public order. We have had past presidents, even their first ladies, several things have been said to them. They did not do anything. But it doesn't mean we as citizens, it doesn't mean that we should not be circumspect in what we say. We should not tarnish the image of another person. So with that, it's not to say that it is right for you to defame somebody, or it is not to say that it was right in the first instance to make such comment about the First Lady. And in other words, it would not have been a better approach for the First Lady to, with due respect to her, to have also taken the action, looking, everything has to be applied with wisdom. You have to apply wisdom in everything you do, because this is Nigeria. And in Nigeria, we have we run multi-party system in Nigeria. So while you are there, not everybody is happy. You don't see yourself running 4 years and you think others have gone to bed. They did not. They are every day also strategizing. So when you allow such an opportunity, it can tarnish your image, as that act is enough to tarnish the image of a husband, is enough to tarnish the image of so many actors in that regard, including the political party. Because before you know it, some other person start using it as propaganda against the political party in power. So all those things you need to consider the consequences of your action too, and look at what will be if you weigh the pros and cons of the action. So I believe what I've said is enough to clear in response to your question.
Okay, so we have laws, like you mentioned in the beginning, some of those laws that protect the rights of the citizen, the Police Act, the VAP Act, the ACJA of 2015 and all of that. The problem we're still facing mostly is implementation, and we're seeking a better implementation every year. Especially on days like this, we want to talk about how we can improve. So from this day forward, this is another milestone that we have achieved. How would you rate performance at last year, and what would you suggest should be the way these enforcement agencies plus the citizen treat matters that concern some of those laws that have been neglected or not implemented in full?
Yes, if we observe from the previous years, including last year, we have a rate of reduction in human rights abuses, but there are still abuses. So the various individuals, both artificial and human, hold responsibilities to protect human rights. For instance, individuals of us, if we are talking about those laws that have been made, we also owe the duty to implement them.
Okay.
Dignity of human person. Then the issue of right to life. Taking the law into our hands is not allowed under our law. Killing of oneself, killing others. Not only that, destruction of public property. All this they have their ways of affecting human rights. No matter the law that is made, the effort of government will be frustrated when citizens themselves, they are in the show of abusing the right of fellow human. So issue of jungle justice, stole phone, allegedly, then bring tire, bring fuel, pour on the person, burn him to death, he's a kidnapper, this and that. It would have been better. That goes to right to life. So it's there in the law. You don't take law into your hand. But when citizens go to do that, it frustrates the effort of the government. Now, also, we as citizens, you are not a government institution. You are carrying out sensitization. That also helps in implementation of the laws made by the government. In other words, what we are doing here today too makes the public to be aware about certain rights due to them under the law. So it's another way, the right to know that I have this law. It's also one of the ways of implementing it. So that once you are denied, you ask for it. So in other words, you see cases being filed in court to seek remedies. It shows, yes, that's part of implementation. But when people suffer, like for instance now, people of rape, and that is inhuman treatment, or people of victim of torture, the Anti-Torture Act provides that in the course of arrest, detention, custody, you don't, torture anybody. And it's right, it's a criminal offense. We see in the society, military personnel, maybe somebody is making call at checkpoint, or somebody is in a way misconducts himself. They say, come down, jump, carry pure water on your head, carry brick, carry block, carry cement, anything you can carry, you carry, or you do front jump 1,000. That is inhuman treatment. It's degrading, it's cruel, it's oppressive. It amounts to violation of that person. No military personnel is, conferred such power to discipline a civilian. When a civilian misconducts himself, you either correct the person. If the person goes beyond, you should correct. Because that misconduct is not an offense. Why is it a crime for you to receive call at checkpoints? Is there any law? Okay. Do we have any statute? Sorry, please. Do you have any statute that provides for that? So what you do, if you feel in any way, you take the person, hand him over to the police that has right to deal with civilians. Police has the right under the law to warn, to desist, and not carry out any act that is likely to, amount to breach of public peace and others. So that is what they should do. Though we see a reduction in it, then our law enforcement agencies too, they have their own roles to do. Though there have been trainings going on, and you can see the current Inspector General of Police, you would observe from some certain officers that have been dismissed from the service. It shows somehow they're going the internal orderly room trial, to show that no, you are responsible as public officer. Right, well, and our courts, lastly please, our courts too, they also have rules to comply. You see sometimes when you file to defend somebody in court, some of our judges will just look at you, you are a troublemaker. They just join issues with you, while the government agencies are smiling.
Time is not on our side. We'll have to stop you there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today to discuss on human rights and its responsibility or responsibilities that actually comes with it. So that was Hamid Ajibola Jimo Esquire, his secretary, NBA Human Rights Committee. And with that, we've actually come to the end of the show this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daybreak Extra. I will be back again next week, same time, same station. I'm Darshan Husseina Usman.
And I am Martia Umar. Stay tuned for Daily Hustle.